Hi, welcome back to Storytime with David Booker. I appreciate you coming by. I'm getting close to the end here. We're doing Sheriff in a Small Town. We're reading the entire book. So we are on the last two chapters. We've been doing two at a time. Last time we did More Trouble and a New Deputy. We've got Silent Night, Tucker, and then there's just three more. So we'll see how far we get today on Silent Night and Tucker. Might as well keep going. And then the last one is only about, 8 and then 4, so 12 pages. This one is going to be about 12 pages. So we'll just do this one, and the next one will be 3 chapters, and we'll finish off the book. Take a look at my books. Let me know what you think you'd like to hear next, and that's what we'll read. If I don't get anything, you have to go by my choice, which will probably be Murder or Mystery in My Pocket. We'll keep up with that type of genre. And then if I don't hear any differently, the next one I may do is the complete book of Time Is. So that's my time travel book. I've got 2. Maybe I'll do my Artistic Endeavors, which is my other time travel novel, but it's not part of the series yet. So enough about that. Let's get back into reading, and we are going to continue on with Silent Night. The night shift was usually quiet. It could be exciting if there was a prisoner overnight waiting for pickup, but as Rocky was fond of saying, it was usually mind-numbingly quiet. He had read the regulations so many times he could recite them like poetry. He had counted anything that could be counted at least 3 times. Today he had gotten a book on physics from the library and was going over the laws of diminishing energy. He was working out the various probable impact energy of different objects on the desk using force equals mass times acceleration, then subtracting the loss of energy due to gravity. To test his math, he took the scale from the back quarters and mounted it on the wall. Taking a selection of rubber bands, he made a slingshot. The eraser was the first piece of ammunition, a quick aim and fire, and he had the first equation. Or he would have if he'd been able to read the numbers from across the room. Realizing he wasn't going to get any meaningful data, he placed the scale at his feet and fired downwards. Picking up a large metal orb, he did a quick mental guess of what the impact weight was going to be. Loading the slingshot, aimed for a center mass, and fired. When he could see through the tears and mist, he looked for the weight, replaced it on the desk, and spent the next minutes gently massaging his shin. Where the weight had hit was blossoming into a beautiful mottled ring of colors. Deciding that he might want to do something productive with his time, he picked up the keys for the squad car out of the desk and went to do a drive around town. Town was quiet. Everything closed up tight for the night. As he passed business after business, he glanced through the windows and ensured all was well. In order to add variety, he parked the car and tried walking up and down, jiggling doors. Not finding anything save a cat wandering around in search of companionship, he decided to check out the lake area. He knew well that this would be the quietest area of all, but custom dictated that he perform a sweep. The cloudy night made the lake hard to distinguish. At the front border, he parked and walked around. A splash caused him to turn on his flashlight in the direction of the sound, and a couple of skinny dippers were caught like deer in the headlight. He quickly doused the light and apologized. "Carry on," he laughed as he strode around the lake. He was passing the phone booth near the park when an old man rushed over to him. "Deputy, I'm glad you're here. I've been robbed." Rocky recognized Tom Perkins, who ran the 5 and dime store and where most of the kids hung out. He grabbed Rocky's arm and pulled him towards the home 100 yards away. As they approached, his Great Dane Zeus barked continually. Rocky had seen Tom walking this huge dog around and often wondered why he didn't just ride it. The dog could bear a saddle, and Tom's slight weighed easily. Oh, I gotta get comfortable. Tom showed Rocky around and explained what was taken. $20 from off the counter, his cufflinks, a ring, and a now empty bowl that had contained a stash of $half. Rocky noted that the back door had been unlocked and was unobserved. Heck, nobody in this town had been known to lock their back doors. Someone probably knew that little fact and was taking advantage of it. These homes around the lake were owned by people with money, an obvious temptation to a thief. He made his note, promised to look into it, and then did a quick search for any footprints out back. Seeing nothing, he walked down the path in front of the houses and cabins and if the light was on, he checked if everything was all right. Everything was certainly not all right. Ethel Snuggs was on the phone trying to raise the sheriff's office when he knocked. She was a flustered spinster who kept to herself and rarely ventured into town. Agnes would drop by and do her meager shopping occasionally. Ethel pulled them in and pulled out a jar of dog biscuits. Giving one to her Dalmatian, she removed some of the rest and pulled out a small bag. She shook it and it jingled. Nothing left in it but a few coins. I had $125 in here. I don't know how they got it, let alone how they knew it was there. Rocky asked about any work that had been done lately. Well, a man came by and offered to fix the front steps. They get loose on account of the lake and heat. The wood swells, you see. My husband used to keep them painted and stained real nice, but since he's gone, I don't often do it. Did you pay him out of this purse? Comes to think about it, yes, I did. She suddenly gaped at Rocky. You don't think it might have been him? He was real polite, looked presentable, too. She flopped down on the sofa. She stroked her dog, who had come up and placed his head in her lap. Even Aldous liked him a lot. That might explain why he didn't bark if it was him. You can't trust anybody anymore. Rocky made his notes, did a walk around and the outside of the house, examined the stoop, and got the best description of the man he could. Hank Pym was looking out the door and holding his shotgun when he saw Rocky pass. He hailed Rocky and told him about the robbery he just discovered. He'd heard the back door squeak and had been woken by it. Rushing downstairs, he grabbed his shotgun and passed him. Duke was resting in the front room and rose barking as he stormed down the stairs. He had his walk by the back door taken. Hank looked angrily at the dog. Get by, dog. That lot of good you are in an emergency. Didn't even bark to let me know someone got in. Just snoring away in the front room. He reached up to smack the dog and rushed into the front room with his tail between his legs. Hold on 1 second, I'm going to get a quick drink. Thank you, pardon. Counting down the strip of houses, his eye readjusted to the darkness. One of the advantages of army training was that he could see in the dark by not looking directly at what he was trying to see. In the distance, he thought he could make out a dark, skulking figure. He was about to change direction for an encounter when Mrs. Tibbet grabbed him by the arm and dragged him into her cabin. In the kitchen, she showed him a cookie tin that was empty. I keep my allowance money in here while my husband's away. Now I don't have anything. She stood with her hands on her hips as if expecting him to leap up and find it. He asked the same questions as before. He had to shoo her Labrador retriever away as he kept trying to place his nose on the notebook or sniffing at his pockets. Whoever was doing the robberies was making quick work. Rocky realized that if he was going to catch this person, he had to make a quick getaway. Telling Mrs. Tibbet he was on the track of the culprit, he hurried out the back door and ran as fast as he could down to the other end. The in-house was Jack Little's place. His Doberman Ramus was barking as Rocky burst into view. Jack was up and at the back door holding a man in black clothes and shaking 2 feet off the ground. Jack, at 6'8", made a mockery of his last name. He worked at the feed store and was built like a brick wall. Rocky called in at the door. With Ramus jumping and barking, it was not time to burst in unannounced. Jack, call Ramus away so I can get in. I see you've got the person I'm looking for. With a backward kick, Jack opened the door and was holding the person in black with one hand and Ramus with the other. Come on in, Rocky. You take this guy and I'll put Ramus out. Rocky whipped out the cuffs. They were locked on the wrists before they hit the ground. The individual was dressed in baggy cargo pants and a thick sweater. His face was covered by a black ski mask. Jack returned and picked the person up and threw them on a kitchen chair. With the other hand, the mask was ripped off. A tangle of auburn hair flew around the face. When it settled, the face was revealed as female and attractive. It was also revealed to be Jack's daughter, Lois. Jack slumped in his seat and placed his head in his hands. His daughter's hands were unshackled, and she was ordered to empty her pockets. 7 bags were pulled out, each with an address of someone whose house had been robbed. Rocky gathered them together as evidence. He put the cuffs back on, and he noticed that a couple of pockets were still full. He patted one and started softly laughing and understanding. So that's why nobody's dog barked. Pockets were full of dog biscuits. Rocky escorted Lois to the car and was about to drive off when Jack leapt into the front seat. All the way back, nothing was said, but he heard the quiet snuffling and crying from the back seat. In the courthouse, Lois was booked and locked into a cell. In between sobs, she explained her reasons for the theft. She wanted to see if she could do it and to prove that leaving your back door open all the time was a bad idea. She swore she was going to replace everything the next night. That was why all the bags had addresses on them. She got the idea when she realized that nobody ever locked their back door and it was dangerous. So, this was a bit of civic duty then, Rocky asked, it almost as if it was a joke. Jack was thinking, Deputy, she's telling the truth, I think. She did a report for Mrs. Lakehurst on how lax the people around here are and how easy it would be for someone to pretty much clean them out or do worse. She only got a C on the paper and she just wanted to prove her point. When like this, Rocky wasn't sure how to proceed. His instinct was to process and place her in state custody, but another part of him was ready to place her back into Jack's care. All things would be easily replaced and there would be an end to it. Jack unlocked the cell and sat Lois beside her father. Young lady, I'm tempted to turn you over to the state police, same as I would do for any criminal. When he stressed the word criminal, it made her shrink into a ball. Rocky was wearing his sternest lawman look. However, under the circumstances, I'll let your dad take charge of you on the condition you return everything you took, as you said you were going to, and let them know why you did it. He drove them back and sat by the lake in the morning dawn, watching her go from house to house, returning and explaining. Driving back to the office, he thought that maybe some good could come out of it. Turning over the shift to the sheriff, he gave a rundown of the night proceedings and headed off home. Climbing the stairs to their bedroom, Rocky was balancing the tray carefully so as not to spill Agnes's tea and breakfast. She had a cold, and Rocky was doing his best to care for her. He had tried to remember whether he starved or... One moment. Obviously, I need something more to drink. He was trying to remember if you starve or feed a cold. There we go. In the end, he had made a large breakfast and figured Agnes could choose to eat as much or as little as she could. Downstairs, he could hear Sheriff Morgan honking. Eat as much as you want and just put the rest on the dresser. I'll clean up when I get home for lunch. Stay in bed and get plenty of rest. He kissed her and dove downstairs as the horn blowing was getting insistent. In the car, Morgan explained where they were headed. We've been getting some complaints about Mr. Chandler. He's been selling pups, and many were not in the best of shape. We'll just go up and have a word with him. I don't think he's doing anything wrong, just might need to clean up a bit or keep the pups with the mother a bit longer. We'll meet Dr. Porter there. He was finishing up a spay when I called him. Rocky was having a hard time keeping track of what the sheriff was saying. He was worried about Agnes and hoping she would stay in bed. She was so used to taking care of others, it was difficult for her to take care of herself. He was counting on one of the many people she had taken care of when they were sick to reciprocate. He brought his mind back to the present purpose of their visit as they walked onto Mr. Chandler's place. Mr. Chandler had a sign out front advertising border collie pups for sale. A bitch and her pups were laying in an enclosure by the side of the house in a bed of straw. The sheriff asked if he could see the pups, as he might want a dog at home. Mr. Chandler probably showed off the pups and the mother. The local veterinarian, Dr. Luther Porter, was just driving up as they were looking over the dogs. I just asked Dr. Porter to take a look at them with me. I want to make sure I make the right choice since I'm choosing a lifetime friend. Mr. Chandler lost a little of his confidence, but brought his smile back to the surface and greeted the vet cheerfully. Rocky moved back to make room for the vet and leaned against an apple tree. The scents of the farm were warm and, well, varied. Hay, dung, pig, cow, and horse all mingled on the summer air. In the rear of the drive was the barn. He strode casually to the opening and saw 3 cows knee-deep in hay. On the other side was a horse of uncertain lineage. Several chickens pecked around while a few more reclined in their nests. The cat wandered around, jumping up onto the bales of hay and lay directly in the sunlight that came in from a window in the loft. Inside another building were stacked more bales of hay, feed for the horse, a basket of apples, and chicken feed. Working his way around to the hen house and its 30 or so hens, milling around and pecking at the ground, he knelt and watched them. Breathing deeply, he noticed a slightly acrid smell. Taking another deep breath, he worked out where the smell was coming from. It was not only acrid, but sour as well. The closer it came to a long outbuilding, the stronger the smell got. It was a dirty, disgusting smell that almost had the scent of decay in it. Approaching a corrugated metal structure with no windows, he paused and looked around for an entrance. His ears twitched at the sound of whimpering His ears twitched. Are you following along? His ears twitched as the sound of whimpering reached them. It was a pitiful, mournful sound, and it seemed as if there were many such minute voices inside. Around the back, he found a slat of metal that served as a door of sorts. Anyways, it was a means of entrance. He cut his hand on the chipped metal as he moved it out of the way. A quick rap with his handkerchief, and he had the door set aside and the way clear. A gust of wind worked its way into and out of the long building, and the stench that returned made him vomit. He took a stealthy approach to the squad car and got out a high-beam flashlight. He hoped he hadn't been seen by Mr. Chandler. Returning, he shone the light on a scene of squalor, filth, and cage upon cage of dogs. During his time overseas, he had seen many things that had made him feel ill at ease, but nothing had turned his stomach like this sight. He counted 7 dead puppies, 5 with what he took for distemper, one who was walking in circles as if it was lost, and another huddled in the dark back of his cage, hiding behind a bowl of scummy water. Rocky stormed out and was filled with rage. The look on his face as he rounded the corner made Mr. Chandler stop talking and back up with his arms raised protectively. The sheriff got between Rocky and Mr. Chandler and was having difficulty holding Rocky back from striking a blow to Chandler that would have knocked him senseless. "Rocky, what the hell's gotten into you? You look like you'd do murder." "Come on and I'll show you. I bet you'll feel the same." Rocky grabbed the sheriff by the arm and hauled him at top speed towards the shed where Chandler was trying to prevent them. Dr. Porter came running up and, seeing where Rocky was leading them, made a dash for the shed. The sight that met his eye caused him to stop short at the entrance. Mr. Chandler was raising himself up to his full height and was attempting to berate Rocky for intruding on his premises. Rocky explained that the stench gave him just cause. Whipping the cuffs off his belt, he had Chandler handcuffed before he realized what was happening. "What the hell, Sheriff? There isn't any crime in keeping a few dogs." Sheriff Morgan turned slowly, and Chandler backed up again when he saw Morgan was just as mad as Rocky had been. "Apparently you haven't heard that cruelty to animals is a crime nowadays." He pointed a shaking finger into the shed. "And this here is cruelty, or I don't know what it is." Rocky and Morgan were breaking the walls of the shed apart and letting light and air into the shed for the first time. Dr. Porter had them take some bales and make an enclosure while he went over the animals. Rocky dug a pit to place the dead animals in and made more petitions to house the puppies based on illness and whether they could be rescued or would have to be put down. The area for dogs to be put down grew steadily. About 85 had distemper in its most virulent, I don't know why I use words I can't even say myself, virulent phase. The rest were sickly, but there might be hope. Morgan took Mr. Chandler in to be booked and sent to the state prison to await trial. Rocky took pictures and filled out a report on the condition of the shed, the disease of the dogs, and the number having to be put down. It was nearing evening by the time the work was finished. The remaining pups that were hopeful of recovery were to be taken to a shelter for help. Dr. Porter would ensure they were healthy before they were adopted. Rocky and Dr. Porter were taking a last look around when a small whimper was heard in the nest of straw. A lone puppy, larger than the rest, must have gotten out of its cage and made a home for itself. A few dead rabbits were found nearby that it apparently had been feeding on. Rocky looked the pup over, then handed it to the vet. On examining it closely, he determined that it was A, male, B, surprisingly healthy. He handed it back to Rocky, who was looking at it speculatively. The dog was curled up in his arms, and every now and then would open its eyes and look into Rocky's face, wagging its tail. Dr. Porter laughed. "I think you've just been adopted." Rocky had never had a dog before, but thought it might be good company for Agnes. He pushed $20 into the mail slot, so it couldn't be said he had stolen it. He took the dog home, his conscience clear. Hello? He arrived home to find Michaela looking after Agnes. "By the time you got back, I've got a home to look after and my husband." She handed Rocky the spoon she had been using to stir some chicken vegetable soup with. As she turned to go, she caught a glimpse of the pup and snuggled it quickly before handing it back and rushing out the door. Rocky gave it a good bath in the kitchen sink before taking it upstairs to show Agnes. She was tucked deep under the covers, and her nose was as red as the rose in the vase next to the bed. "What's that in your hands?" she croaked as Rocky bent over for a kiss. He held the puppy out to her. "I'll go down and bring up some soup." "Get a small cup for the pup," she reminded him. Putting 2 bowls and a cup of soup and 2 cups of strong hot tea on a tray, he carefully maneuvered his way back to the bedroom. Agnes was holding the dog close to her as it shivered. "Is it still scared?" Rocky was surprised at the scene. The dog was comfortable with him immediately. Agnes wrapped the dog in a blanket and laid it near her. "No, it's freezing. He's still damp from his bath and it's a bit chilly up here." Rocky handed her soup, put his on the night table, and then placed the dog on the tray nearby. As they ate, Rocky explained how he happened to come home with the dog. "Tucker," Agnes said suddenly. "Who's Tucker?" She held the puppy and placed him near his soup. "Him. The way his tail tucked all under, except when we're holding him, gave me his name. He'll grow out of tucking as he feels more at home, but we'll keep the name." The dog ate ravenously then Rocky took him back to relieve himself. That night, the dog slept between them. Rocky in the small hours found out that puppies can grow up to 3 times their size at night as he was pushed slowly to the edge of the bed. So that leaves us with the end of our reading today. The next one will be changes. We'll do changes, false charges, and festivities. So we're almost done. Kind of a shame. This is kind of one of my favorite books that I've written. So that's it for today. I appreciate you stopping by. I look forward to seeing you again in the next couple of days. If you are an author and you're happening to come upon these and listening in on the stories, if you'd like your book read on here, please let me know. Obviously, I prefer humorous or kind of fun stuff, but I will read anything. So give me a shout, let me know, and I will see you all again. Give me a couple of days, 2 or 3 days. Have a good day and be good to yourself. Bye-bye.